And you're welcome back to the show, where we're finishing with our review of the sporting weekend. Our sports editor Derrick Lynch is with us. Derrick, good morning to you.
Morning, Alan.
Thanks very much for being with us. Happy camp, I'm sure, in St. Flannan's after their victory in the All-Clare semi-final in TUS Dr. Harty Cup. They are into the final. Once again, a familiar place for them. Let's hear from their manager, Brendan Bugler, speaking afterwards. He knew, though, it wasn't an easy game. It was a 2-19 to 3-11 win over St. Joseph's of Tulla, and he knew they were going to get a very tough game from their opponents.
We knew it wasn't going to be easy, you know, when you have a local derby like this, and we knew it wasn't going to be easy. There's a really good Tulla team that have had a really good Harty Cup campaign, and we expected what we got, and thankfully our lads stood up a bit stronger in the second half, and we see ourselves in the finals.
So there you go, Brendan Bugler. I'd say happy but also relieved, Derrick. A tough foul game. They've had a few tough foul games to get to this point. It was the same in the quarterfinals as well. Not just a 40-second appearance, which is incredible in the Harty Cup final. That's a record as well, but they were made to work for it.
Absolutely they were, and I suppose it was always going to be that way, because you talk about St. Flannan's having a tough route, or having to dig deep. Tulla had to do the exact same thing, and ultimately they did that again. Like, this game went right down to the final quarter, and probably until Thomas O'Connor got the second goal for St. Flannan's, that really turned it on its head. Those two goals came really quick fire. Dara McNamara with the first, Thomas O'Connor with the second, repeating their heroics of their quarter-final victory as well, the two lads getting the green flags. So they did really well inside. But I suppose just one little thing, I suppose, that St. Joseph's would be left wondering. Their centre-back Ryan Hayes got injured kind of early on. I think it was inside the opening 10 minutes, and rather than come off, like, he showed great heart. He actually went up top and became a kind of a puck-out target, but it forced Tulla then to drop back Matthew Corbett, not into a sweeper, an out-and-out sweeper role, but a kind of a loose role between the half-back line and the full-back line, and he mopped up the world of ball. His delivery was brilliant, but he was kind of having to sit back there to cover for Ryan being injured. But when the game was in the melting pot then in the last 10 minutes, he seemed to push on a little bit more, and he almost single-handedly dragged them back into the game. So I guess they'll be left wondering, had they had the freedom to leave Ryan at 6 and have Matthew pushing on from midfield right throughout the contest, could that have been a factor? But credit to St. Flannan's, and we said it even in commentary, like, coming into the last 15 minutes, they have this finishing kick, and they got a great bounce off the bench as well. They got some really good fresh legs coming in. John Barry did really well, young Talty did really well too, Ben coming on, so they just had that little bit more for a finish. But Brendan touched on it afterwards, and we'll hear more on our lunchtime sport from him. There was just more of an intensity in Flannan's in that second half. I'm not saying they didn't show up in the first, but I suppose just the work rate of Tulla just never let them get a foothold in the game, and then the late goals really turned it. But we can analyse this game to death, Alan, but I think the overriding thing is what a pleasure it was to see, as it turned out, 37 or 8 young Clare lads outside in Zimmerbeim Park Kisog putting on a hugely entertaining, brilliant, quality game of hurling. St. Flannan's will look back on some of the wides. That's becoming a small bit of a trend. I'd say shooting practice will be high on the agenda for training. And for Tulla, I'm not saying they're punching above their weight, but they're becoming a heavyweight now. They're producing quality players out in East Clare between the Clooney Quinn and Broadford, and obviously Tulla and direction that the players they're getting. So, like, it really is positive from a Clare under 20 point of view, I think, this year. And obviously Terence will have first hand on all of those guys as well. So it's just another step forward on that conveyor belt that we've seen the last couple of years.
Our hurling analyst Tommy Guilfoyle also with us as well. And Tommy, I'm sure with the passing of time, St. Joseph's Tulla will reflect on the game and say, well, disappointed to lose, but it's great that we contributed to a quality contest. But right at the moment, I'm sure they're still bruised, and particularly when 2/3 of the way through the game they were 5 points up.
Yeah, they will. And again, I suppose it came down to maybe strength and depth in the St. Flannan's panel. Yeah, I was talking to the principal there. She's a great sports person, the Tulla principal after, and like, she was immensely proud of their efforts, not only today but throughout the campaign, because while Flannan's have all the tradition and the history, Tulla are fighting their way. And I suppose, look, at the end of the day, they will probably say, Flannan's ended up the better team, but they were there for 3/4 of that game, and it's amazing how one instance or two instances of play can change the game. Tulla were leading at the time. a ball broke. Nicky Belenko, took it on. Now, in real time, I thought maybe he would have been fouled, but, some superb defending from the centre-back, Cullinan, dispossessed him, and then the ball goes down the field, and Tom O'Connor, didn't beat 1, 2 or 3. He beat 4 Tulla defenders before he put it in the net. And I think that was the changing point at that stage, because I think had Tulla got that goal, I think they'd have broken Flannan's, whereas it was a 6-point turnaround. Instead of Tulla getting a goal, Flannan's got the goal, and they drove on from there. But I would agree with Derrick there. Flannan's have a lot of improvement to do, but isn't it great from Flannan's point of view now that they find themselves in a final against the team that they played in the first round, which ended in a draw. So there'll be no fear there of Nina. But I think, they'll know that Flannan's will need that performance, won't be good enough to beat Nina. But it's a nice way to be going into a final.
That is for sure. And Derrick, if the All Clare affair was an entertaining game, that same term could be applied to the All Tip semi-final. Nina CBS back in the final, but really made to work for it. The minimum, getting them over the line, 118 to 20 points against Thurles CBS. Their second Harty Cup in final in 3 years that they're looking for. But that was a tough old game. But as Tommy says, these two sides, they'll know each other. Yeah,
but they drew in the first round. So, there's an obvious form line there to go. And I think your man that got the winning score for them, I'm not quite sure. I'll find this out of our tip colleagues. He's pronounced Dugan or Dugan. But he's a class player anyway. We can pronounce that's for sure. I think he might have gone off in that game, so I'm not quite sure how that would have skewed their performance on the day. But I think it'll be a real good final. And it was funny, speaking to Jamesy on Friday's preview on Sideline View, and had a chat with him pitch side just before the game as well. They're still stinging over last year's loss to Thurles, so there's a bit of hurt, which is never any harm either. And the fact, it's not Thurles again, but it is a Tip team, and Clare and Tip, we don't want to lose to them in Tiddlywinks, not to talk of a Harty final. So I just think it'll be really, really intriguing. And I would hope that Mallow is a great place and all that, but I think this deserves a bigger venue. You'd be thinking the Gaelic Grounds should be the venue for this, because it'll attract a massive crowd, and we've already seen the Mallow crowd has to be restricted now because of parking and stuff like that. So 2,000 tickets won't do this one, so I would imagine the Gaelic Grounds should nearly be the destination.
Yeah, would you agree with that, Tommy?
Yeah, no, I'm hearing that there could be a toss between Innis and Thurles. That's what I'm hearing here at work this morning. So, wouldn't it be great to have a Harty final in Cusack Park if Flannan's win that toss? Or, you would imagine if it's neutral ground that the Gaelic Grounds would be the ideal situation, for the game, because I don't know, since Christmas, I think there has been an appetite for hurling like there has never been before. So, it's going to draw a massive crowd, so that's going to have to be taken into consideration. Since Christmas, Clare and Limerick took off on the 3rd of January, and Jesus, the year we're nearly 3 or 4 weeks into it, and then you had the brilliant club finals over the last 2 weekends, and there's really whetted the appetite, and I think there's a real hunger for supporters to get out there and go to whatever match they can. So let's hope that if it is the Gaelic Grounds, that it will be a big crowd there.
Yeah, Derrick, what do you make of that? Tommy bringing us exclusive there. If the option is Mallow, as you say, probably not quite fitting for the potential prospect of this a game of this magnitude, is it willing to risk it for the toss of a coin? You could get you get home advantage, or you end up going to Thurles. Which is preferable, I guess. Yeah,
but look, Thurles is no trick for Clare team, and we're well used
familiar
to going
territory.
There. A lot of these guys are used to playing there for minor and 20 with Clare as well, so I don't think it'll make any great difference. Obviously, you'd have a better atmosphere in Páirc Uí Chaoimh because of the confines of the venue and all the rest of it, and it being in the town. There was a savage atmosphere there. The two ultras down at the LD in there, where they had stewards running between them every so often when there was crackers going off and all the rest of it. So yeah, look, that could make sense. Toss it up, or if they didn't want to risk it, in the Gaelic Grounds. But either way, it'll be a fantastic atmosphere, a fantastic occasion, and please God, a Munster schools title coming back to the county again.
Yeah, look, we'll have a bigger preview of that game closer to the time. Derrick, anything else you want to give a mention to? Another local soccer?
Yeah, before we get to that, we had a very historic occasion on Friday where the Spanish Point girls qualified for a first Munster Senior A final since 1997. First time we've had a Clare team since then, and it was them as well in 97. So a hugely impressive victory over a Mercy Mounthawk Tralee side that were coached by Louise Nimora Hurtig. So quality on the field and quality off the field.
Goals proving to be the difference there, 4-7 to 111.
Yeah, 3 of them coming in the second half when the game was really in the melting pot. So huge character shown there. And I look at maybe the toss thing may not play into this, right? But the other semi-final that's been played today, and it's Loreto Clonmel taking on Middleton. Now Clonmel are meant to be very strong in this competition. So if you had a situation, right, and we're talking about integration, and we're listening to Mary McAleese, not listening to people telling her that 2027 isn't a realistic target, which to my mind is another fatal error in this process by being bullheaded about it rather than doing it right. But wouldn't it be a lovely, lovely nod to integration if you had a Clare tip final on the double and have the Harty Cup final and the Munster Senior A Ladies Football final put on together? I think it would be a real market step towards that. Not just because it would make things easier for us from a broadcasting perspective, but from a marketing perspective, from a promotional perspective, and to have both counties bringing their supporters to back the other. I think it would be brilliant.
Can I put it to you though, that is rational, so that's why it won't happen.
Well, that's the problem. I forgot that.
And finally, Avenue United breathing down Newmarket Celtic's neck.
Yeah, good wins for Avenue and Bridge. I suppose it was a case of, well, the cat's away, the mice can play, and they took their advantage of it because Newmarket were out in Munster Junior action, and a brilliant win for them. You know, a difficult enough fixture on a Saturday evening heading down to Cook Park in Tipperary to face St Michael's, and Dean Hegarty got the only goal of the game that puts them through to the 6th round. So that's a big victory. Like it's probably a two-pronged victory. They've advanced and Michaels are out. You know, there's kind of a double element.
Two for the price of one.
Exactly, yeah. So that's a huge win for them. And they're our only remaining representative in the competition as things stand. So, and again, as I say, Bridge and Avenue keeping the. So I think there's only 4 or 5 points still between first and fourth in their Premier League table. So it's really bringing things down the wire. And at the other end, then Kilrush in a bit of relegation bother now at the moment. They were beaten by Fairgreen Celtic as well. That was the other Premier Division game played this weekend. So yeah, all that is ramping up. But I think the highlight of the weekend certainly Newmarket taking out Michaels down in Cook Park and onto the 6th round now for them.
Fair play to them, and hopefully they can go all the way. Derrick, thank you very much. Thanks as well to Tommy Guilfoyle.